in the heart of Cleveland, Ohio, stands a formidable structure made of dark sandstone that has watched over Franklin Boulevard for nearly a century and a half. This architectural marvel is known as Franklin Castle, and it remains one of the most notorious locations in the entire United States. The house imposes a heavy silence upon the street. It occupies, creating an atmosphere that feels thicker and colder than the surrounding city. Locals have whispered about the horrors trapped within these walls for generations, passing down legends of murder and madness. The sheer size of the building commands attention, but it is the dark history that holds the gaze of anyone brave enough to look closely. It is a place where the boundary between the living and the dead feels terrifyingly thin. The story of this Gothic masterpiece begins in the late 19th century, during a time when Cleveland was rapidly expanding with industrial wealth and immigrant dreams. The man responsible for this creation was Hannes Tiedemann, a German immigrant who had risen from humble beginnings to become a prosperous grocer and banker. He was a man of severe determination and ambition who wanted a home that reflected his rising status in the New World. However, the grandeur he sought would ultimately become a cage of sorrow for his family. The construction began in the year 1881 and took 2 years to complete, resulting in a 4-story fortress that boasted more than 20 rooms. It was built to be a sanctuary, but destiny had other plans. Hannes Tiedemann spared no expense in the creation of his dream home, hiring the prestigious architectural firm of Cudell and Richardson to bring his vision to life. The style was High Victorian Gothic, a design choice that favored vertical lines and intricate stone carvings that gave the house a church-like reverence. The exterior features turrets and gargoyles that seem to scowl at passers-by, warning them to keep their distance. Inside, the house was filled with rich wood paneling and marble fireplaces that spoke of comfort and wealth. Yet the layout was labyrinthine. Dark corners and shadowy corridors were abundant, creating spaces where secrets could easily hide. From the moment the final stone was laid, the house seemed to possess a personality of its own. The Tiedemann family moved into the castle with hopes of a prosperous future filled with joy and laughter echoing through the grand halls. Hannes Tiedemann brought his wife Louise and their children into this fortress, believing he had provided them with the ultimate protection against the hardships of the outside world. For a brief period, the house was filled with the sounds of life and the warmth of a family on the rise. They entertained guests in the lavish ballroom on the 4th floor and enjoyed the sprawling grounds that surrounded the estate. But the stone walls that were meant to keep the world out also served to trap tragedy within. The happiness of the Tiedemann family was destined to be short-lived as a dark cloud began to form over their lives. The first blow to strike the family occurred shortly after they settled into their new life at Franklin Castle. In the year 1891, the specter of death crossed the threshold, claiming the life of their 15-year-old daughter Emma. She fell victim to diabetes, which was a poorly understood and often fatal condition during that era. Her death sent a shockwave through the household, shattering the illusion of safety that Hannes Tiedemann had worked so hard to build. The loss of a child is a wound that never fully heals, and for Lewis Tiedemann, the grief was insurmountable. The grand rooms of the castle, which once felt welcoming, now felt vast and empty, echoing with the silence of a life taken too soon. Just weeks after the tragic passing of young Emma, death returned to Franklin Castle with a relentless hunger. This time it claimed the life of Wiebeke, who was the elderly mother of Hannes Tiedemann. The household was plunged into a state of perpetual mourning, with black crepe draping the mirrors and hushed tones replacing normal conversation. The rapid succession of these deaths began to fuel rumors among the neighbors and the servants. People began to look at the castle, not with admiration for its beauty, but with suspicion and fear. They whispered that the ground beneath the house was cursed, or that Hannes himself had brought some dark energy from the old country. The atmosphere inside the house grew heavy with unspoken dread. The tragedies did not cease with the deaths of Emma and Wiebeke, as the following years brought even more heartache to the Tiedemann family. Hannes and Lewis would go on to bury 3 more children within the span of just a few years, creating a cycle of grief that seemed unbreakable. Each death added another layer of gloom to the stone walls of the castle, transforming it into a mausoleum for the living. The once vibrant Hannes became a stern and distant figure, his heart hardened by the relentless loss. Lewis drifted through the house like a phantom, her spirit broken by the emptiness of the nursery. The castle was no longer a symbol of success, but a monument to the fragility of life. As the death toll rose, so did the dark rumors surrounding Hannes Tiedemann and his Gothic fortress. The local community began to speculate that the deaths were not merely the result of illness or bad fortune. Whispers circulated that Hannes was a tyrant within his own home, and that he was somehow responsible for the demise of his family members. Some tales suggested that he ruled with an iron fist, and that his ambition had turned into a cruel madness. Servants spoke of his terrifying temper and the strange noises that emanated from his private study late at night. The house became a magnet for gossip and fear, with the public imagination conjuring up horrific scenarios to explain the string of tragedies. The most persistent and chilling rumor involved the existence of secret passages and hidden rooms within the structure of Franklin Castle. It was said that Hannes Tiedemann had commissioned the architects to include these clandestine routes for reasons that were never fully explained. Some believed these passages were used for illicit affairs, or to move unseen through the house to spy on the servants. Others whispered of darker purposes, suggesting that the tunnels were used to dispose of evidence or even bodies. The idea of a house riddled with secret veins where a man could vanish into the walls added a psychological terror to the physical imposing nature of the building. The castle was seen as a puzzle box of horror. One of the most disturbing legends that emerged from this period concerns the fate of a young servant girl named Rachel. According to local lore, Rachel was involved in an affair with Hannes Tiedemann and was brutally murdered within the walls of the castle on her wedding day. The story claims that Hannes, in a fit of rage, or to silence her regarding a pregnancy, ended her life in one of the secret passageways. While historical records do not confirm this specific event, the legend has become inextricably linked to the property. Visitors and psychics have claimed to sense a young woman in deep distress near the hidden doors, and cold spots are frequently reported in the areas where she supposedly met her end. The final tragedy for the original family occurred in the year 1895, when Hannes Tiedemann passed away at the age of 57. Her death marked the end of an era and left Hannes Tiedemann alone in the massive stone structure that had consumed his loved ones. Official records state she died of liver disease, but the rumors of the time suggested a broken heart or even slow poisoning. With Hannes gone, the anchor that held Hannes to sanity seemed to sever. He was a man alone in a house built for a dynasty, surrounded only by memories and the echoes of the dead. The castle stood silent and imposing a dark silhouette against the Cleveland skyline. Following the death of his wife, Hannes Tiedemann sold the property and moved away, attempting to leave the ghosts of his past behind. However, the reputation of Franklin Castle was already cemented in the minds of the Cleveland populace. The house passed through several hands in the early 20th century, serving various purposes, but never finding a stable owner. It became a home for a German singing society, and later a hub for the German Socialist Party during the turbulent years of the First World War. During this time, rumors of espionage and secret meetings flourished, adding a layer of political intrigue to the supernatural mystery. The castle was seen as a place of secrets, both personal and national. The legends of the castle took a darker turn, with tales of a mass murder involving the German socialists who occupied the building. Stories circulated that a group of members were executed in the basement during a factional dispute or a purge. While evidence for such a massacre is scarce, the basement of Franklin Castle has consistently been identified as a focal point of negative energy. Witnesses have described feelings of overwhelming dread and the sensation of being watched by unseen eyes when venturing into the lower levels. The stone foundation seems to hold the memory of violence vibrating with an energy that repels those who are sensitive to the supernatural. In the decades that followed, the house fell into periods of disrepair and neglect, which only served to heighten its spooky allure. The darkened windows and overgrown ivy made it the quintessential haunted house, fueling the nightmares of neighborhood children. It became a rite of passage for local teenagers to stand on the sidewalk and dare each other to run up to the front door. The gargoyles perched on the roof seemed to come alive in the moonlight, watching the fear take root in the community. Franklin Castle had become a character in itself, a malevolent entity that swallowed light and hope. It sat waiting for the next chapter of its dark history to be written. The legend of the house was revived in full force in the 1960s and 70s when the Romano family purchased the property. They bought the castle with the intention of restoring it to its former glory and raising their large family within its walls. However, their dream quickly turned into a nightmare as they became the primary witnesses to the most active haunting phenomena in the history of the house. The Romanos reported strange occurrences almost immediately after moving in, ranging from unexplained sounds to physical encounters with entities. The house, which had been dormant, seemed to wake up with their arrival, eager to feed on new energy. Mrs. Romano was frequently the target of the supernatural activity, reporting encounters with a woman dressed in black. This apparition is widely believed to be the restless spirit of Hannes Tiedemann, still wandering the halls of the home where she lost her children. Mrs. Romano described the figure as sorrowful yet terrifying, often appearing in peripheral vision or standing silently at the top of the grand staircase. The woman in black became a constant presence, a mournful sentinel who refused to relinquish her claim on the castle. The encounters were not fleeting glimpses, but prolonged sightings that left the family shaken and terrified. The Romano children were not spared from the haunting experiencing phenomena that would traumatize them for years. They spoke of a little girl who would appear in their bedrooms, crying and asking for help, only to vanish when approached. This spirit is often associated with Emma, or one of the other Tiedemann children who died in the house. The sound of phantom footsteps running down the hallways and the laughter of invisible children became a common backdrop to their daily lives. The innocence of childhood was corrupted by the presence of the dead, creating an environment of constant fear and anxiety. The castle was not a home, it was a playground for spirits. One of the most chilling incidents reported by the Romano family involved the physical manifestation of the haunting. Doors would slam shut with violent force, and heavy furniture would be dragged across the floor by unseen hands. On one occasion, a priest was called to perform an exorcism or a blessing on the house in an attempt to cleanse it. The priest reportedly left the property in a state of panic, claiming that the evil within the walls was too powerful to be contained. He warned the family that they were in danger and that the house was a portal to something demonic. This validation from a religious figure only deepened the dread. The intensity of the haunting reached a fever pitch when the Romanos discovered a hidden room that had been sealed off for decades. Inside this secret chamber, they reportedly found a pile of human bones, presumably belonging to an infant. This grisly discovery reignited the old rumors about Hannes Tiedemann and the fate of the servant girl Rachel. While the origins of the bones were never definitively proven in a court of law, the find cemented the belief that murder was woven into the very fabric of the house. The discovery felt like the house was confessing its crimes, revealing the physical evidence of the darkness that permeated the stone. The psychological toll on the Romano family became too great to bear, and they eventually fled the castle, leaving behind their dreams of restoration. Their departure added another layer to the legend, confirming that the house was uninhabitable for the living. Following their exit, the house changed hands multiple times, with each new owner experiencing their own version of the terror. Some lasted only a few months, while others tried to capitalize on the reputation by offering tour. However, the activity never ceased. The castle seemed to chew up occupants and spit them out, feeding on the fear it generated. In recent years, the castle has attracted paranormal investigators from all over the world who are eager to document the phenomena. Teams equipped with high-tech gear have spent nights locked inside the stone fortress, hoping to capture evidence of the afterlife. They have recorded electronic voice phenomena that sound like German phrases and captured thermal images of cold spots moving through the rooms. The ballroom on the 4th floor remains a hotbed of activity, with investigators reporting the sensation of dancing figures and the faint sound of orchestral music. The house continues to provide ample proof that something lingers within. One particularly harrowing account from a modern investigation involves a researcher who was physically attacked in the basement. He claimed that an invisible force shoved him against the cold stone wall and left scratch marks on his back. The aggression of the spirits seems to have escalated over time, shifting from mournful sorrow to violent anger. It is as if the entities are tired of the intrusion and are fighting back against the curiosity of the living. This shift has made Franklin Castle not just a place of sadness, but a place of genuine danger for those who dare to trespass. The tower room, which offers a panoramic view of the city, is another focal point for the supernatural energy. It is said that Hannes Tiedemann spent her final days in this room, staring out at the horizon and weeping for her lost children. People standing on the street below have reported seeing a woman in black pacing back and forth in the tower window long after the house has been locked up for the night. The silhouette is unmistakable, a lonely figure trapped in a cycle of grief that transcends death. The tower stands as a beacon of sorrow, a lighthouse warning ships away from a rocky shore. The architecture itself seems to contribute to the haunting, with its acoustic quirks and optical illusions. The heavy wood paneling absorbs light, creating an eternal twilight even during the day. The secret passages which honeycomb the walls create drafts and whistles that sound like human moans. Skeptics argue that the haunting is merely a result of the building settling and the wind blowing through the old stones. However, those who have spent time alone in Franklin Castle know that the atmosphere is charged with an intelligence. The house watches you, and it reacts to your presence. A fire in the late 1990s nearly destroyed the castle, causing significant damage to the roof and the upper floors. The blaze was suspicious in origin, adding to the list of calamities that have befallen the property. As the flames licked at the stonework, neighbors watched in horror, fearing that the history would be lost to ash. Yet the castle survived the fire, standing defiant against the destruction. It was as if the house refused to die, holding onto its physical form with the same tenacity that the spirits held onto the ethereal plane. The blackened stones only made the edifice look more menacing. Restoration efforts in the 21st century have been slow and fraught with difficulties. Contractors have reported tools going missing and work being undone overnight. Workers have quit on the spot, claiming they felt an oppressive weight on their chests or heard voices whispering their names. The house seems to resist change, preferring to remain in its state of Gothic decay. Every nail driven into the wood feels like a battle against the will of the structure itself. The castle demands respect, and it punishes those who treat it merely as a construction project. The legacy of Hannes Tiedemann remains the central pillar of the haunting, despite the passage of time. His portrait, which once hung in the main hall, was said to have eyes that followed visitors around the room. Although the original furniture is long gone, the imprint of his personality remains. It is a masculine dominating energy that clashes with the feminine sorrow of Lewis. This conflict of energies creates a chaotic vibration in the house, making the air feel electric and unstable. The patriarch still rules his domain, refusing to relinquish control, even from beyond the grave. There are those who believe that the land itself is cursed, perhaps dating back to before the castle was even built. Theories range from ancient burial grounds to ley lines that intersect beneath the foundation. This would explain why the tragedy was so concentrated and why the energy is so difficult to cleanse. The stone of the castle acts as a battery, storing the negative emotions of every tragedy and replaying them on an endless loop. It is a scar on the earth, a place where the natural order of things has been perverted. Today, Franklin Castle stands as a private residence, once again shrouded in mystery and privacy. The current owners keep the gates locked and the windows covered, protecting the secrets that lie within. Occasionally, a light can be seen flickering in the upper windows late at night, sparking fresh rumors among the neighbors. Is it a ghost or merely a living person navigating the darkness? The ambiguity keeps the legend alive, ensuring that Franklin Castle remains a topic of conversation in Cleveland. It is a dark jewel in the crown of the city. The enduring power of the Franklin Castle story lies in its blend of documented tragedy and supernatural folklore. The deaths of the Tiedemann children are historical facts carved into headstones in local cemeteries. The grief of Lewis and Hannes was real and palpable. The ghost stories are merely the way the community processes this immense sorrow, giving a voice to the pain that occurred behind the stone walls. We tell these stories not just to scare ourselves, but to remember the lives that were cut short. The ghosts are memories that refuse to fade. As night falls over Franklin Boulevard, the castle seems to grow in size, its shadow stretching across the street like a dark hand. The gargoyles, silhouetted against the moon, look like guardians of the underworld. The silence that surrounds the house is not peaceful, but expectant, as if the building is holding its breath. For those who walk by there is an instinctual urge to cross the street, to put distance between themselves and the cold stone. It is a primal reaction to a place that feels predatory. Ultimately, Franklin Castle is a testament to the destructive power of grief and the inability to escape the past. Hannes Tiedemann built a fortress to protect his family, but he could not protect them from disease or death. He built a monument to his success that became a tomb for his dreams. The spirits that are said to walk the halls are trapped in the moment of their greatest pain, unable to move on. The castle is a recording of human suffering, playing over and over again for eternity. The lingering dread of Franklin Castle is not just about ghosts jumping out of closets. It is a deep psychological unease that settles into your bones. It is the realization that money and stone cannot save you from tragedy. It is the fear that our sorrows might outlive us, echoing in the places we once called home. As long as the castle stands, it will serve as a reminder of the darkness that can reside within the human experience. And on quiet nights, if you listen closely, you might just hear the weeping of a mother who can never find her children.